Okay, so this comes from the Queen City News and also Charlotte Sports Live.
Okay.
Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper has had conversations with Jim Harbaugh about the team's head coaching vacancy, sources confirm. Now, Rico, let's have this conversation,
Okay.
I suppose, a little bit.
Yeah.
And see, we can probably get people's thoughts on him as well. That a couple things. If Jim Harbaugh decides to depart from Michigan, how hard does Michigan get hit with the transfer bug? Number two, who does Michigan go after? Who is number one?
So I keep hearing, I've listened to Early Break the past couple of days because I'm up that early and I'm going to listen to them. So they've been I keep hearing them throw Chris Peterson and Bob Stoops.
Yep.
Bob Stoops is not going to Michigan.
Has been retired.
Bob Stoops is not going anywhere that is outside of Oklahoma. He's not. The only time he coaches is the XFL, and that's just a little side gig for him, just to stay, fresh and in football shape with his mind. Chris Peterson, I don't know. He retired from football for medical reasons. We've seen coaches come back from retirement for medical reasons before. But I think more realistic would be, snag somebody out of the Big Ten. Well, just take somebody away from somebody else.
So
it's not like Michigan's going to have a problem with that.
No.
I mean, hell, Jim Leonard, maybe if they wanted to. Granted, he's a first-time head coach. That'd be hard to do that.
First-time head coach at Michigan.
Yeah. What Brett Bielema did at Illinois is impressive, but he just got an extension there. Plus, he has an Iowa tattoo.
That's right.
PJ Fleck, I don't know how the shtick would do at Michigan because there's no way he's toning it down.
Nope. Well, so here's what's interesting with like PJ Fleck. Yes, he's had. I think I read somewhere that Michigan has had, or excuse me, Minnesota has had 6 9+ win seasons in their program history, and PJ Fleck has 3 of them. And so I guess what PJ Fleck has done at Minnesota is great for Minnesota. Now you wonder how many more wins do the facilities, do the brand of Michigan football get PJ Fleck? We know he's coached Western Michigan, so he's been in the state. Now it's Minnesota. Now it's potentially Michigan, I suppose, if you truly want to put PJ Fleck's name out there. But 9 wins isn't enough for Michigan.
No, but I mean,
especially
you go to Michigan
coming
from Minnesota,
that's true.
You're getting better recruits. You've got better facilities. You've got more. You've got more support from the fan base and the athletic department out of Michigan than you do at Minnesota. I'm not saying Minnesota doesn't support their football program and their fans don't support their football program, but out of Michigan, it's, another level. It's like a Nebraska. It's another level of support and love for the program. Another guy who I guess nobody is talking about anymore, although they should, especially after the offensive performance that they put on in the bowl game against Kansas State, Bill O'Brien. He's been in the Big Ten before. He coached at Penn State.
It's so weird, though, Rico, because Bill O'Brien's name continues to get floated.
And then
nothing happens.
Yes.
And now you're starting to hear Bill O'Brien at the end of the NFL season will make his way back to New England with the Patriots.
It does seem like that's
and that's where it's going to go. Yeah. More of, hey, Nick Saban doesn't want you here. Go find somewhere else, but we're not going to fire you.
Yeah. And the Patriots need an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, because Matt Patricia
is a defensive coordinator calling offensive plays, which is weird. But whatever.
So once again, it's like I feel like that's Nick Saban's way of like, hey, you got to go.
But that's, a coach going to the Nick Saban Rehabilitation School for coaches who don't coach good, coming out and, doing something with himself. I think Michigan should take a look at it, I guess, even though his name has been floated out for seemingly every available job in college football and they've all seemingly gone to someone else. But there's, tons of other assistants out there that might be, in line for that Michigan job. But also, look, it's Michigan. If they wanted a head coach from another university, I don't see how they would have a problem prying that person away. Well, so especially with where they are now, like a Nebraska prying somebody away from another collegiate job where they are now with their, lack of wins in the previous multiple seasons. That's hard. Michigan, you made the college football playoff 2 years in a row. You won the Big Ten 2 years in
There's
a row.
Expectation to live up there, though.
Look, you're going into a perfect situation to win right away.
I don't know if you're going into a perfect situation, because nowadays with college football, I don't know if there is such a thing as the perfect situation, because when guys leave, then that situation is not as perfect. I mean, because everything's on the table if Jim Harbaugh and his assistants leave, or Jim Harbaugh, offense coordinator, quarterback, anything's on the table nowadays.
But you got to think,
because you also have that transfer window for when you lose a coach that they can depart with no penalty. I think one other name to watch, and I think I saw this on the text line somewhere, their offensive line coach, Sharon Moore. He played at Oklahoma. And he is, I want to say, the co-offensive coordinator with the offensive line coach. However, he's been there since 2018. So if they went internally, I suppose you could go with him to maybe steady the ship a little bit. But once again, is that a splash enough hire for Michigan? Jim Leonard wasn't a good enough hire for Wisconsin. Is Sharon Moore, who got there in 2018,
but do you want
now he's the offensive line coach, so and they've had a good offensive line the last couple of years. Is that a splash enough or the right fit for Michigan, who is coming off of two straight playoff appearances?
Do you want to go with the splash, or you just want to go with stability? Do you want to go with somebody who's been there and helped get you to this point and can continue to get you to this point, and maybe you know, if you're the athletic director, ask for him to go out and get top-tier assistants as well. You know, you keep the ones that you have around you, but you're going to have to hire at least one more for whatever position. Go get a top-tier assistant, and then you just work on keeping that recruiting pipeline going and just trying to take that next step. You know, you're beating Ohio State. You're making the college football playoff. Now you need to make the national championship game. You just got to – it's that one more step that you need to take. You have it right now where you're one step away. Do you want to go out there and get somebody – to mess with everything that you've worked with, or do you want to keep that stability and keep that in place where you've got things going in the right direction, and maybe this one change, although it is losing somebody, could be that the catalyst for Michigan to take that final step to a national championship game?
And maybe so. I also think, I mean, revisiting the question that you asked a moment ago, do you want stability or do you want splash? I think that's and not that that's necessarily changed over just the last couple of years, but I think that's become a bigger question in the last year, because do you want stability so that guys don't leave, or do you want splash so maybe you can get a new batch of guys with support, if that makes sense? I mean, think about it this way. Colorado and Deion is the perfect example. Perfect example. You go out and get Colorado very well could have gotten Ryan Walters from Illinois, the defensive coordinator from Illinois. And I think that would have been a really, really good fit for Ryan Walters.
That would have been a real stable hire.
Exactly. One that it's going to take time. You're investing in, right? And I'm not to say Colorado's not investing in Deion Sanders. I'm not trying to criticize the hire even. But then Purdue,
I think it's a good hire.
Purdue goes out and gets Ryan Walters from Illinois instead. Well, with Colorado, for example, they go out and get potentially the biggest splash hire
of all splash hires.
Splashiest
of hires.
Maybe not coaching Power 5 experience wise, but in terms of name, brand, image, recognition, knowledge, in terms
of coaching NIL, it's the splashiest.
And so immediately, I mean, think about it, what we heard coming out of Colorado right after Deion got there. So many people are interested. Eyeballs are on him, where everybody's talking about him. And the fan support, the donor support, the booster, they are all coming and rushing to the gates to flood it with money so we can get Colorado.
And if you look now, all of these 5-star athletes who are 5-star and high 4-stars who are putting out their top 7s, top 10s, top 5s, Colorado's there. It's always the odd one out, because you've got Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Miami, Colorado. And I'm like, that's weird, but it's Deion. It's the Deion effect. They're all considering Colorado, but it's all going to depend on what Deion does in this first year.
So I guess with this, speaking about, recruiting, this is a perfect segue here. 402-464-5685, by the way. Nebraska fans, you guys should kind of be on the lookout this afternoon at 4 p.m. Central Time. It's the Under Armour All America game. And it's not the one that's usually played in Texas or anything like that. This was the one that Maurice Washington was in a couple years ago that everybody was kind of watching. He was the MVP, I want to say, of that Under Armour All-America game. And because we talked about it a couple weeks ago, there's too many high school bowls where it's like Under Armour All-America game. Saturday the 7th is the Under Armour All-American Bowl.
There was the Army All-American Bowl.
No, it's the U.S. Army Bowl. Oh, was the one that Scott Frost coached in.
U.S. Army Bowl. There's
a lot. But today,
are those even All-Americans?
I don't know. But today, nonetheless, there's a game at 4 p.m. Central Time. It's going to be broadcasted on the ESPN networks. And speaking real quickly about Dion, he's in the running. He and Colorado are in the running for the number one cornerback in the country, Cormani McClain. He's currently committed to Miami, but he is now floating between Miami, Florida, and Colorado. So there's going to be a decision made today from Cormani McClain. I believe it's today during the Under Armour All-America game. Mm-hmm. Now today, more importantly, drawing it back to home to Nebraska, you guys got two people to watch for. Two. First one is going to be Ethan Nation, a 3-star defensive back from Roswell, Georgia. He's choosing between Auburn, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Houston.
And he will make his decision in the first quarter.
Yes. Nation has now comes from Rivals, the Inside Nebraska guys, and the national recruiting analyst Adam Gorney. Now, he says this on just kind of the breakdown. Ethan Nation has been prioritized by new Nebraska coach Matt Rule and his staff, and all signs now point to Nation ending up in Lincoln unless a surprise is in store. So there's that one. Then the bigger one, a guy that was actually previously committed to Nebraska, a guy that both Ethan Nation and Cameron Lenhart have signed. They signed back in the early signing period, but kept it quiet. Mm-hmm. Now they want to announce it publicly on ESPN tonight. And this is Cameron Lenhart. He's going to be announcing in the fourth quarter this afternoon or evening. Now, once again, a previous Husker commit with the Scott Frost staff decommitted after he was fired, and then now has kind of stayed a priority for Nebraska.
He decommitted after
maybe it was Mickey Joseph or
Shenander
was fired.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then he is now a 4-star defensive end, 6'3", 245-pound guy from IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida.
I say all the time that the trenches, it takes about a year or two to get ready to play at the Big Ten at the Power 5 level. He looks ready.
Yeah,
he looks like he could come out as a freshman.
He's big.
Just do some work.
He's a big dude. So here's just the overview before we get to break really quickly. The 4-star defensive end from IMG Academy committed to Nebraska in late August, but when former coach Scott Frost was fired, Lenhart reopened his recruitment. Over the last few months, Rutgers, Penn State, Georgia Tech, Nebraska, and Maryland became the 5 frontrunners for Cameron Lenhart, who said at the Under Armour Media Day that he's already signed and is waiting to make his announcement at the game. The Huskers have made him a top priority again, and while Maryland and others can make this interesting, Matt Rule and his staff look the strongest to get him back in the Huskers class, and the pick and the crystal ball, if you will, is going to Nebraska. So 2 guys to watch there this afternoon, Cameron Lenhart, Ethan Nation. I will also add this. I was reading an article on 24/7 Sports from Cameron Lenhart about this, mentioned that he loves how the staff is from his neck of the woods. Cameron Lenhart is from the D.C. area, and we know the ties that this staff has to the eastern part of the country. But so does Maryland and Mike Loxley.
Mike Loxley was born in Washington.
Exactly.
Born in D.C.
So there are little things to kind of keep an eye on this afternoon, although the season is done and the national championship is the only game left to be played. A little bit of Husker recruiting news, but both those guys have signed quietly back in the early signing day to whatever school. And now we'll just go forward, and we'll find out if Nebraska adds Cameron Lenhart and or Ethan Nation
first quarter
to their class later this afternoon.